All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. This is a weekend update edition. We're going to go through what happened last week with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. We're going to take a look at year to date. We're going to take a look at all of our normal charts. We're also later in the video going to take a look at the Bitcoin chart itself. Bitcoin has been struggling. We're going to take a look at that. However, the Bitcoin miners are having a different experience lately. So we're going to look at all of that stuff. If you are new here, we talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners all the time on this channel. If you are not new, but you have not yet pressed subscribe, please do us a favor and subscribe to the channel. Also, if everybody could please smash the like button. We're going for 800 likes on this video. We're also going to talk about some news that broke for a Bitcoin miner on Friday and then some other news that broke for a Bitcoin miner this morning. So we're going to talk about those two things later in the video as well. An awful lot to go through. Let's get to it. We'll start out by taking a look at the Bitcoin miner chart week over week. Okay, so this is as of last Friday versus the previous Friday. You're going to see the Bitcoin miners once again. This is 2 weeks in a row. The Bitcoin miners have significantly outperformed Bitcoin. Bitcoin was actually down 1% on the week last week. That is not a big move, but a little bit of a move to the downside. This is a couple of weeks in a row Bitcoin has moved down. But at the same time, all but one Bitcoin miner was in the green, and a lot of the Bitcoin miners had big up moves last week. So while Bitcoin was down 1%, at the other end of the spectrum, you've got Riot, which is the third largest Bitcoin miner by market cap. That was up 31%. Riot's been lagging its peers. It's starting to catch up, so a big week for Riot. You're going to see Stronghold was up 30% last week, but we will take a look. When we take a look at year to date, Stronghold is still struggling, so while that was a big bounce in the short term last week, they're still struggling. Then you get to Marathon, which is the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap. That was up 18% this week. Cypher, which is another one of the large ones, 17%. Cleanspark, which is the second largest by market cap, was up 12%. You're going to see a couple of ones that lagged the other Bitcoin miners, but still did beat Bitcoin last week. You're going to have Iris Energy only up 3% last week. Bitfarms only up 2% last week. So those were some of the larger ones that were lagging behind versus their peers. But all in all, 18 of the 19 Bitcoin miners that we follow were in the green this week, while Bitcoin was down 1%. So strong performance. So I'm going to go to a new chart. This is the performance of the Bitcoin miners last Friday versus April 16th. I think we're going to look back and see that April 16th was a low. A lot of the Bitcoin miners put a local low in on April 16th. This was the culmination of about a 4-month period where the Bitcoin miners were underperforming and struggling versus Bitcoin. So we're going to look at that chart next. So over a longer period of time, over the last 4 months, the Bitcoin miners have been drastically behind the performance of Bitcoin. But you're going to see over the last week and a half, and particularly since their lows on April 16th, the Bitcoin miners have now started to drastically outperform Bitcoin. So we're going to have to see if this trend continues. This is basically 8 trading days, not quite 2 weeks, but these are not small moves. So in this period of time, you're going to see Bitcoin was only up 2%. So Bitcoin basically flattened in that period of time. At the top end of the spectrum, you're going to see Stronghold up 112%. Now remember, Stronghold had a big week last week, but again, when we look at the next chart, you're going to see even with this 112% move to the upside, Stronghold is still one of the worst performing Bitcoin miners, so a long way left to go there. Not sure where they go from here. Mawson up 62%. This is also one of the micro cap, nano cap Bitcoin mining stocks, but a big move to the upside. Then we get to some larger stocks. Riot is the third largest Bitcoin miner by market cap. It is up 51% in this 8-day trading window. Cleanspark, the second largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, it's up 40% in this 8-day period. And then Marathon, the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap, is up 37%. So you can see this is not just the nano caps having wild runs. These are the top 3 Bitcoin miners, and they're up significantly in a period of time where Bitcoin's up only 2%. So a lot of other very strong performances. Cypher, 36%. Wolf 36%. The worst performer out of all of these is Any, just up 11%. Argo Blockchain 15%. So those are 2 of the stocks that still continue to struggle. So we have a lot of other stocks in the middle up between 18 and 31%. So strong performance in this 8-day window. So one of the main things that I'm going to be looking for this week, and not so much on any given day, but over the course of this week, can the Bitcoin miners continue to outperform Bitcoin? If so, that would basically be very close to to a 3-week run. So obviously we're on Monday morning here, so we haven't even started this week yet. So that's the number one thing I'm going to be looking from the perspective of the Bitcoin miners. We'll talk Bitcoin itself in a few minutes. Conversely, if we look year to date, you're going to see that most of the Bitcoin miners are still in the red. So this is a part of that 16-week period where the Bitcoin miners seem to be lagging Bitcoin. So we do have one Bitcoin miner that's out ahead of Bitcoin. You're going to see, as always, Bitcoin in gold still up 52% year to date, despite the fact that we've been a little bit sideways really for the last 2 months now. But Bitcoin started the year strong, up 52%. There's only one Bitcoin miner that is outperforming that. CleanSpark is up 74%. So CleanSpark has been the real standout performer over the last year to date so far. We did have 2 other Bitcoin miners move into the green on this chart. All the rest were in the red last week. So Cypher now up 9% year to date and TeraWulf up 3% year to date. So we're starting to have some of these pop into the green. This is the trend we want to see if this can continue. Next after that, we have Marathon down 17%. And I'm just going to hit some of the larger market caps. We have Riot down 23%. So Marathon, obviously the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap. Riot, the 3rd largest by market cap. So those are inching towards zero. Iris Energy down 29%. Bitfarms down 33%. And then really from there, we have the range all the way down to 67%. So we still have 5 Bitcoin miners down between 52 and 67% year to date. Those are the ones that I personally think the market is worried about, and I am worried about as well. Again, obviously, this is not financial advice. We're going to have to wait and see what happens with these Bitcoin miners, but to me, those 5, the market has been particularly hesitant. Stronghold, which has had the strongest 8 days out of all the Bitcoin miners by far, up over 100% in the last 8 days. That still leaves them down 52% year to date. So you can see they are still struggling. Moss and Greenidge, Argo Blockchain, and any round out that list. So we'll see if one of these can jump out of the bottom 5. So far, over the last 4 months, they have been solidly in last place. So I have been saying really for the last 17 or 18 months, I do think there will be winners and losers in this bull market inside of the Bitcoin mining space. So we're starting to see some pretty big separation between the top of this list and the bottom of this list. Obviously, CleanSpark up 75% versus any down 67%. So again, this is a good reason for everybody to please do your own due diligence. Invest very carefully in these Bitcoin miners. They are extremely volatile stocks. Okay, the next chart compares Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners versus November of 2021 when Bitcoin hit its high in the previous cycle. So Bitcoin hit 69,000 in November of 2021. All the Bitcoin miners hit either a local high or an all-time high at that same time. So measuring from that date, you're going to see Bitcoin is down 8%. Now, for a period of time before the halving, we did pop up above the previous all-time high. That's the first time that's ever happened. At the moment, we're in a little bit of a pullback. We've spent the last couple of months going sideways. Bitcoin down 8% versus its all-time highs from November of 2021. Then you're going to see there's really only one Bitcoin miner that's in the neighborhood. Once again, that is CleanSpark, down 19%. Then we drop off to Cypher, down 55%. That is the second best performing Bitcoin miner. The rest of the Bitcoin miners are down between 72% and 99%. And I do want to make a distinction here. Once again, we have 4 Bitcoin miners down 98 or 99%. Any, Mawson, Stronghold, and Gree. So here's Stronghold again. Even though it's had a recent run where it's doubled, it's still down 99% off of its previous highs from the previous bull market. Then you've got a couple just behind that, Argo Blockchain and TeraWulf. I will say I do think there's some opportunities in here. So obviously this is where you guys have to decide. This is why I provide all these charts, is to look for opportunities. A company like TeraWulf, which seems, in my opinion, to have turned the corner. They've strengthened their balance sheet quite a bit. They do have nice growth plans, and they are down 93% from their previous all-time high. So again, not financial advice. I'm not recommending that you buy TeraWulf. In fact, I don't own TeraWulf myself. It is on my watch list. But there are other companies as well, like Hut and Hive, down 89%. There are, to me, some companies that are very interesting on here that may represent opportunities. So again, obviously, that's for you to do your own due diligence and for you to judge. And no one of these charts tells the whole story. So that is the other thing I like to try to reiterate. I show a bunch of different things, but try to take things as a piece of a puzzle, part of a larger picture. Okay, then just to take a look at what the market did last week, to keep things in perspective, we're going to see last week, actually, the NASDAQ and the Russell and the S&P 500 led the way. So the equity markets rallied. They had struggled for a few weeks prior to that. So they got back on track last week. Gold and silver, which have been having a spectacular year, they did have a little bit of a pullback last week. So gold down 2%, silver down 4.5%. Still, year to date, you're going to see they're doing very well versus historical performance. And then you have, from a cryptocurrency standpoint, you did have Ethereum was actually up almost 1%, and Bitcoin was down about 1% last week. So very sideways week for the cryptocurrencies. If we switch this over to year to date, you're going to see Bitcoin still by far in the lead, up 51%, Ethereum up 36%, so the cryptocurrencies leading the way. But silver and gold, even with a rough week last week, still are doing quite well. Silver up over 15%, gold up almost 14% year to date. The S&P 500 up almost 7%, the Nasdaq up 6%. So really, the laggers are the Dow up 1.5%, and we still have the Russell in the red, down 1.24%. So the Russell continues to struggle. This is part of a larger 3-year plus trend now where the Russell has just lagged behind the other equity markets. The Bitcoin mining companies most closely follow the Russell. In fact, a couple of them are in the Russell 2000. So that's why I like to keep my eye on this performance. Okay, very quickly, I'm not going to get into the details on this. We talked about this at great length on the Friday live stream if you want to check that out. Marathon did put out a press release last Thursday that they are now targeting 50 exahash by the end of the year 2024. So this is the biggest growth plan out of any of the Bitcoin miners at this point. There are 3 Bitcoin miners that seem to be pulling away as far as their growth plans, and that is Marathon, now at 50 exahash target by year end, and CleanSpark and RIOT, which are targeting 30 plus exahash by year end. There are several other Bitcoin miners with big growth plans behind that, but this was a gigantic announcement. Not only are they targeting 50 exahash by the end of the year, but they say they are fully funded to get to that with their current liquidity on their balance sheet. The other Bitcoin miner that had some news break this morning was Iris Energy, or IREN. And they say operating hash rate increased to 9 exahash, so that's a big increase for them as well. IREN is pleased to announce that its expansion is ahead of schedule, and operating hash rate has increased to 9%. The company now also expects to achieve 10 exahash in May of 2024, so they had been targeting 10 exahash by June 30th, so they're ahead of schedule. The other thing worth noting is they say IREN's fully funded expansion to 20 exahash in 2024 remains on track, which will improve nameplate fleet efficiency to 21.9 joules per terahash. So that is very efficient. Marathon had a similar announcement. They're targeting around 21 joules per terahash by the end of the year. This is significantly better than the rest of the global Bitcoin network. And these are the type of numbers I think that Bitcoin miners are going to have to strive for. Somewhere between 21 and 24 exahash, I think, is going to become the new norm for the Bitcoin miners that succeed in this bull market. And we see a lot of the Bitcoin miners that have made purchase orders and have plans to get to those numbers by the end of 2024. So we'll have to see which companies can execute on those plans. That's going to be a key part of the success equation. Bitcoin miners can actually execute and get these machines online, operating in an efficient way. So again, those are the 2 big announcements that hit at the end of last week and now one this morning. Lastly, if we take a look at Bitcoin, this is Bitcoin on the 1-day chart, and you're going to see we've had a red line here that dates back to the beginning of March. So that's almost 2 full months ago. This red line is just under $62,000 at $61,900. You're going to see today, this morning, we have retested this line again. So we continue to trade near the bottom of the range that we are in here. Overall, over the last 2 months, we've been trading between about $62,000 and $74,000, but really, more realistically, over the last couple of weeks, we've really had a ceiling somewhere around $67,000. So that has been the peak over the last couple of weeks. We've hit the bottom of this range a couple of times as well, down around $62,000, including today. So I will continue to say on the Friday live stream, the number one thing I was looking for over the weekend was to stay above that line and have that line of support hold. So I will say the same thing again today. We are really testing this line. This is about the 7th or 8th day in the last 2 months. We have candle wicked down to this line or below this line. So I do think this is an important line of support to hold. We've been looking at the daily RSI as well. We've had a descending line of resistance, this green line. It did look like a week ago, maybe we were going to break above this and have a breakout, but this actually turned out to be a fake out. At the time, the MACD was showing us the potential that this could be another fake out, and it did turn out to be. So if we look at the MACD in that same time frame, you're going to see we've had 3 different times where the histogram looked like it was about to turn green. This first time here, we got a fake out. We did not get this bullish crossover on the MACD. So we did pull back, and then we had another run up again right here. We got just within striking distance of a bullish crossover, but the histogram did not close a day in the green. So once again, it has stayed in the red. And now a third time. Last week, we were making another run. This is where it looked like we did break out on the daily RSI, but once again, this failed to confirm. So this is 3 times in a row that essentially we got up to the point, but could not get a bullish crossover. So we've been in the red on the histogram for almost a month and a half. That's actually a very long period of time. That's much longer than the average run in the red. And as I said, we've been trading near the bottom end of our trading range for Bitcoin over the last several weeks. So that's where some of the technicals sit. We're going to wait and see. Again, the main thing that I'm looking for is, can we maintain above this level at around $62,000? Or do we break below that? If we do, from our peak, a full 20% pullback would be somewhere around $59,000. So that would be the next target that I would be looking for to the downside. Conversely, if we hold, we have been bouncing between around $62,000 and $67,000. So we'll see which way this breaks. So an interesting week coming up for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. As far as Bitcoin goes, we want to hold above $62,000. As far as the Bitcoin miners go, I'd like to see them outperform Bitcoin again this week. I think that would really confirm the trend reversal and give us a lot of room the rest of the year for the Bitcoin miners to start to make their run. So as always, please invest carefully, do your own due diligence. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Please remember to smash the like button, and if you haven't yet, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.